6 o'clock, I'll call the June 30th, 2021 meeting of the Wythe County Board of Supervisors to order. This evening we have Pastor Todd Porter of Life Changers Christian Church to offer invocation. If you would stand and remain standing for the pledge.
Thank you all for your service to our community, our county. We appreciate you. Let us pray. Heavenly Father, Lord, we're thankful for this opportunity to be here tonight. God, we're thankful, Lord, for our county officials and the great citizens, Lord, of Wythe County. Lord, I just ask that you give wisdom and direction at all the business at hand tonight. Lord, let the decisions made tonight bring honor to our citizens, Lord, of this great county, to the foundation that our government was built on. And more than anything, Lord, let our decisions made tonight, Lord, bring honor to you. Lord, we ask that respect, integrity, and character prevail here tonight. Lord, we ask that your hand of protection and provision, Lord, continue to be upon this county, upon this state, and upon our great country. God bless this meeting, God bless our county, and God bless the United States of America. We declare the will and the hopes of heaven to reign in this meeting tonight. In the mighty name of Jesus, amen.
Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
First item on the agenda is citizens' time. We have a few people signed up. First one on the list is Mr. Jeffrey Wright, downtown Austinville.
Since we got several people, I'll try to keep it really brief and talk really fast. Put a lot of stuff in a small window. Got 11 notes that look like a 3-year-old has written. I'm not here to talk about the riverbank or any of that stuff. I'm here to fuss about the Apex Center. I know that's a sticking point for a lot of the citizens of Wythe County and you guys, whatever. I want to dispel, I usually like to give an opening statement and then a few disclaimers and then we jump into the meat and potatoes of it. So I'll give my opening statement. I've busted you guys pretty hard on social media, that's no secret. And I just want you to know, this is how I feel. Politics is politics. I get worked up over the money part of it. We may get in a fist fight over at the Apex Center, but if you call me at 2 o'clock in the morning, your car broke down, I'll come and get you. Or if we was hungry, I'd be like, hey, let's go to Applebee's. But I do get passionate about the First Amendment, Second Amendment, Fourth Amendment, and taxes. So that's why I'm here. Politics, it's a rough and tumble sport, and if you can't take a few licks, probably in the wrong business. And I say that to myself. If I'm going to be mouthy and vocal, I realize that I'm open season. There's a target for me too, and I don't begrudge anybody who wants to engage or say that anything about me in that regard. The second thing I want to dispel is that I am anti-Apex. I am not anti-Apex. I am anti-poor planning. I am anti-non-planning. I'm anti-saying the budget's going to be X, and then it turns out to be Y, Z, Z prime, Z squared, and we keep on going. That's what I get worked up over. I really, ultimately, wanted to see, I think everybody wants to see the Apex succeed. If you like your county and you choose to stay home and live in Wythe County, you like to support your local officials, you want to see them succeed. So a lot of people, they got an axe to grind, they just want to fuss at the county all the time. That's not the case. But I do feel when a bad decision is made that leads to a cascade of decisions that impact the tax-paying citizenry, I think sometimes you got to put the brakes on and you gotta say, whoa, we need to reevaluate, we need to go back to square one, or we need to change the paradigm, think of something different here. Past boards have made bad decisions. Years ago, we got hornswoggled by Duke Energy. You had this pipeline come through the county. They bought a lot of land. I had several acquaintances that had to sell their house. I know people that dug multiple wells. And Duke dangled a carrot. Board fell for it. A few years later, if I'm not mistaken, I'm speaking in generalities here, but generalities matter if you're trying to tell the truth. We built a six-figure elevator on the side of a building, only to tear it down within a couple of years and build a new building. And so we knew that money was going to get spent, and the building got tore down. So there's examples throughout local government history of waste, of poor planning, and foreknowledge of the result of the poor planning. So here we are with the Apex Center. We got this pink elephant. We keep throwing money at it. I had some reservations about even showing up tonight, but I've had several people. I don't know why they think I'm supposed to be the proxy spokesman, but I mean, it is what it is. You know, I hear a lot of people say, hey, they're pro-Apex Center. Well, guess what? There's a lot of people who are anti-Apex Center from the standpoint of the money. But people, they don't like to confront their board members. I think people in Wythe County are generally good folks, and they don't like confrontation. So they don't want to come up and say, hey man, I don't buy that, blah, 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 blah. So I was like, okay, I'll be the bad guy. What happened here a few weeks ago, I think, was a bad thing. When some of you guys held the budget hostage and hooked it to the regular budget, that was not cool. And I think anybody that pays attention to politics and government, you know better than that. Because that's what they do in Washington, D.C. Hey man, that's pork spending. We're going to hold that, we're going to tack that onto that bill to get this. Morally, that's not right. Ryan made a motion to separate it because it's a contentious subject. It's an open-ended subject. But everybody want to tack it on, not everybody, want to tack it on to the budget. That ain't right. And if you keep that up, there's going to be a group of citizens that huddle up, and they're going to get bent out of shape. That's just how it is. I really didn't get too focused on the Apex Center. I'll tell you what got me going here a couple years ago. We thought the school resource officers was going to get taken out of the schools. And so, and correct me if I'm wrong, we had to have a property tax increase, just an itty bitty one. You know, hey, we need school resource officers. Okay, I get it. But we're also playing the Apex game over here. Would we have had to have a property tax increase if we hadn't have been trying to juggle this Apex mess? I don't know. I think this incremental property tax increase is directly tied to wasteful projects like the Apex. And so here we go. So last time you guys met, 4-3, going to go $220,000, 200 plus, I don't know the exact number, 1,000. We're going to throw that at the Apex again. And that's basically just going to keep the doors open, electricity on. if I'm understanding in some of my research, the assistant says there's gonna be, you're gonna need $2 to $5 million to get this thing up to snuff. You're gonna have to concrete the floor, you're gonna have to pave outside, you're gonna have to do, infrastructure inside the building. There's something, and I mean, I don't claim to know all the answers, but there's some things that seem self-evident to me. And if I go too long, says somebody just say like, hey, do wind it down, and I'll wrap it up real quick. Some things are self-evident. If you would have put this thing at exit 60, exit 73, exit 80, on a nice flat piece of property with room to expand, a 90-degree entrance, a couple traffic lights, you wouldn't hear old Jeffrey say one word, especially because I think just those factors alone would have helped the Apex Center. But we've got this horse barn on this weirdo hill behind a truck stop on a dirty road going to a sand plant. It didn't take a rocket scientist to figure out that's a bad location, man. So some of the Apex stuff, it ain't the Apex fault necessarily. It'd be great if we could get a couple Chinook helicopters and pick it up and put it on a good piece of property. And I think that would solve a lot of problems. But that's not realistic. And I've heard some folks make the argument, hey, COVID killed it. That's true to a degree. But on the flip side, I think a lot of detractors, or excuse me, a lot of supporters, they're using COVID as a cover now. They're saying, hey, once everybody gets vaccinated, we can have events there again. Life's going to be good. We're going to rock on. That's not going to happen. You've still got exit 77 with 2 angular entrances. If you had Garth Brooks down there, you'd have traffic backed up from Wythe to Graham's Forge. You'd have to have exponential resources to control that. It was a doomed project. And I just think that somebody's got to have the courage. Somebody's got to have the courage to say that. This last 200,000 plus bucks. The sheriff's, I mean, I haven't even talked to Charlie about this. I just use him as an example. You got the sheriff's office's bleeding personnel, and that 200,000 bucks would have went somewhere good to either subsidize some deputies or do a little retention. It would make a difference. So the priorities seem a little bit out of kilter, and we're paying taxes on it. We're paying taxes on it. So there's a few other points that I probably should make, but I don't feel like this is probably the proper forum. And I'm just a citizen. I don't want to come up here pointing fingers and acting like a hoodlum and all that stuff. Some of the stuff probably needs to be a Q&A. If there's ever a future hearing on it, I'll be here. Because I'm sure there are certain things that you guys discuss behind the scenes and with the Apex board that I'm not privy to, and there's no sense in me commenting on things I don't know. I will say this going forward. If you're going to spend our money on the Apex, there needs to be a 2-year financial plan. There needs to be a 2-year strategic plan. There needs to be a 5-year financial plan. And there needs to be a 5-year strategic plan. If you're going to do this against the wishes of a huge chunk of taxpayers, you need to tell them what you're doing. That is just a law of governance from the top to the bottom. That's not me demanding it. That's not me kicking up dust. That's just how it is. And any time, whether it's the Apex Center, whether it's some other project in the future, when it gets to these levels of contention, and that's probably too strong of a word, but it is what it is. You have to have public hearings, and you have to separate them, and you have to vote on them, and you have to get public input. And I don't know that that happened this go around. That's not right. So, I'm afraid that if COVID would go away today, that the future of the Apex still wouldn't be that bright. But that is total conjecture, and time will tell. But I would ask for plans going forward to be publicly produced, because we can't just keep doing what we're doing. No plan, open-endedness, no nothing. And if it continues, there's probably going to be some FOIAs start flying and, you know, depositions somewhere down the road. Because, man, I hate to even make a statement. You guys were voted in as agents of change. You guys were voted in for responsibility. And Jamie, I ain't giving you a free pass on this one, but I understand you're probably in a pickle because a lot of your constituents, they use the Apex. I know some of you Apex board folks, they live in your district. They're good friends of mine. And I took a little heat. So, you know, it's hard to be, like I said last time, it's hard to be in local politics. And I don't want you guys to think that I take you for granted or I'm trying to poke a bee's nest. But somebody's got to stick up for the citizens and responsible spending. So, having said that mouthful, I would just ask, if we're going to do this for another year, 200,000 plus bucks, get us a plan, make something happen, and have the courage, if it's not going to work. I mean, who knows, this COVID variant, Delta variant, could take off again. They shut down half a state, and we're going to be right back where we're at. I mean, it just maybe could have, would have, you know, I don't know. But get us a plan. Let's look forward. Quit throwing money at it, trying to get something to stick to the wall. Because people's willing to take it up a notch. I love you guys. I appreciate you. I don't take what you do for granted. It's a hard job being in local governance. And if I bust on you, it's all about the taxes. It's not about you. Thank y'all.
Thank you. Next person on the list is Linda Lacy.
Yeah, she's not able to be here this evening, and she just wanted me to distribute this to you. She wrote an article, it was in the paper last week, under Viewpoint, and it's about the critical race theory baloney that we're dealing with, and so I'm handing this out to you guys, and hopefully you will read it. She's a veteran and an educator and so on and so forth, and that sort of thing. Okay. And then it's me.
Go ahead.
Okay, fine. I had sent you guys last week the resolution from the Carroll County Board of Supervisors regarding the Department of Education's model policies for the treatment of transgender students in Virginia schools. I have copies of that. We're hoping that you guys, hopefully you got it, and we can also get this resolution for the benefit of Wythe County schools and residents, and back up Carroll County and a lot of the other counties. Whoops, I don't
I
have
actually
those.
have one on my
You
email,
have-
yes.
I got the email.
You got it? You got it, okay. So this is really, really important. We need to get this on the agenda. All the whereases are here. You can see what Carroll County did, and this is being circulated to other counties too, and we needed to get to the Virginia Association of Counties, and hopefully they will back it up for the benefit of all our school children. Okay, on to the next. Here is an article from the Epoch Times about critical race theory. And is it in fact a violation of the Civil Rights Act and the Constitution? I only have a couple of copies, and hopefully,
Just give it to me. Mr. Barrett.
Okay, I'll give it to Mr.
He
Bear,
can
and hopefully
scan
he
it.
can copy it and get it to you guys so you can see what's cooking as far as critical race theory goes in our Constitution and illegal or not. Then there's the last thing. This is really fast. We have a Wythe County newspaper. We've had it for a while, and it's could be a whole lot better. This is information about how can we save local news, making our newspapers better. There must be somebody, that has initiative, a little ingenuity. We have a local community college. Do they in fact have a journalism program? And perhaps we should look at it for the benefit of all residents of Wythe County, so we can get the word out, so people can know, and we can utilize a much better form of communication like we had years ago. So I'd appreciate you looking at that, thinking about it, and perhaps you know people, persons, or some bodies that are willing to do a respectable job of getting all the news into Wythe County. Right now we have the Pulaski Patriot. It's an online forum. It comes out every Friday, and boy, does it wipes everything out. Everything is on there. It's a wonderful publication. It's digital, and they do some paper stuff too, and they hand them out at different places. It could happen here in Wythe County if there's somebody that had the initiative. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Ms. Myers. That's all we have signed up for citizens' time, so I'll close citizens' time. Moving on to the agenda. Next item is the payment of invoices.
Motion to pay the invoice.
Have a motion by Mr. McRoberts to pay the invoices. Do I have a second?
Second.
Have a second by Mr. Horny. Is there any invoice that any board member wants to pull out and discuss? Hearing none, we'll do a roll call vote with Mr. Smith.
Aye.
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 Yep.
Aye.
So approved. Next item on the agenda is the minutes of our previous meeting from June the 8th, 2021. I'll entertain a motion to approve.
So moved.
Have a motion by Mr. Smith. Do I have a second?
Second.
Have a second by Mr. Terry. Is there any corrections or discussion about the minutes as presented? Hearing none, we'll do a roll call vote. Mr. Terry?
Aye.
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 So approved. Next item on the agenda is old business. Mr. Barrett?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, the first item on there is appointments. You have the Appalachian Regional Acquisition Center Authority and two appointments for the community college, still vacant.
Does anybody have anybody for the appointments?
So, Mr. Chairman, I spoke with Jamie Wythe this afternoon. He is interested in serving on the Apex Authority Board, so he did reach out.
Who, what was the name?
Jamie Wythe.
From Wythe Insurance, right?
You making that in the form?
I'll make a motion that we appoint Mr. Wythe to the board.
Have a motion to have a second.
I'll second.
Have a motion and a second. Is there any questions or discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, same sign. Congratulations to Mr., is it White? That's what I thought. Did we only have one opening?
At this time officially, yes. We have not received a resignation letter, but I understand another member was looking at resigning. I don't know if that's been reconsidered.
So I talked to him again this afternoon as well, and he doesn't seem like he's going to. He seems like he's going to stay on. If it's the same one that I'm talking about.
I know Mr. Barry Ayers sent me, I'm not sure if he sent it to everybody, but he was interested, and apparently he went to their last meeting and they didn't have a quorum to have a meeting, so. Folks, excuse me. If y'all are gonna have a conversation, will you step back here, because it's funneling it right up here. So, you know, if they're having that problem, that's, you know, so. Do you have anybody for the WCC? I know you'd sent some names out.
Yeah, and don't, I'm more than willing to reach out to the one that I emailed to you. There's no objection to reaching out and talking to that individual. The other individual, Mr. Smith and I have had some conversations with as well. Not certain if that individual's interested, it could be an individual from the agricultural community. We're still working on it. If y'all would like, I'll reach out to that other individual. Permit.
I didn't have any problem.
I don't have any issue with that.
Okay, and I'll let you know.
Anything else under appointments, Mr. Barrett?
No, sir, Mr. Chairman.
Anything else for old business?
I do not have anything.
Mr. Hankins, you have anything? Moving on to reports. First one is Miss Gwen from the Treasurer's Office.
Miss Gwen is closing out fiscal year end, and she said she would be up here as soon as she possibly could be.
I wondered about that when I saw on
Yeah.
the agenda. You have anything, Ms. Vaught?
While Ms. Balton is here, I would actually, I would like to see if maybe we could have someone from reassessment just come and maybe speak at our next meeting if you want to talk to Mr. Yeah, if you want to have him come and just give an update of what they've covered, areas they've covered, and anything he can provide.
They've updated that map too, that's all it is, so we're gonna take a picture of that.
Next item is a Budget Committee report.
The Budget Committee met on June 23rd, 2021, and makes the following recommendations. Approving closing the convenience centers on Sunday, July the 4th, and Monday, July the 5th.
Mr. Barrett, you,
The Tazewell landfill will be closed on Monday, July 5th for the holiday. That means our transfer station has nowhere to take trash on Monday, July 5th. The contract with D&M Recycling that has our center indicates they will be closed for the 4th, which is technically on Sunday, so close it on the 4th and the 5th will be beneficial for both the trash and recycling centers and the transfer.
coming from committee, it doesn't need a second. Is there any questions or discussion? Hearing none, we'll do a roll call vote. Mr. Smith?
Aye.
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 Authorizing staff to enter into an agreement with HBC CPAs to provide pre-audit and services per the recommendation of Robinson Farmer Cox.
Mr. Barrett, you have anything to add on that?
If there's any questions, I'd be glad to help answer.
Coming from committee, it doesn't need a second. Any questions on that one? Hearing none, we'll do a roll call vote. Mr. Terry?
Yep.
Aye.
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 Aye. Amend and appropriate $2,080 from the DMV stop funds, or fees revenue, to account 11003-319027 to professional services 1213-430150 in order to pay the May DMV invoice.
And that's the same as we've done in the past, where
Yes.
Ms. Gwen's office is issuing more of those. Any questions or discussion on that one? Hearing none, we'll do a roll call vote. Mr. Terry?
Aye.
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 So approved.
Authorize staff to enter into a Virginia Public Authorities agreement to purchase electricity from APCO at a discount rate.
Mr. Barrett, you want to touch on that?
There is a long document in there, obviously, that you all saw. Basically, it's been negotiated for quite some time. We have always been a part of the Virginia Association of Counties and the Virginia Public Authority program that gets us discounted rates. There was a lot of discussion of factors that have delayed it. We're not doing it, but it has information in there that if we were to put solar panels on our schools or on our county office buildings, it's got the net metering rates for selling electricity back to AEP and all that. I attended or sat in on a webinar conference on the entire event. Staff's recommendation is to authorize the county administrator to sign the agreement to participate in this Virginia Public Authority ethical agreement.
Mr. Bear, I do have a question on that, and give me just a second to find it. At the last school board meeting, the school board approved $2,430 to VML VACO AEP steering committee. Is that the same thing, and why are we double, or why are they double dipping out of county funds?
The authority, the steering committee that oversees this bills all entities for their services that take county this. So, the transfer station gets a bill for this, Wythe County gets a bill for this, it's our water department, our wastewater department, our county office building, and then the school gets a bill for that. So it's everybody that is part of this, group gets, a part of the overall cost of the oversight of overseeing this contract.
So,
No, I've attended one of those meetings, and most of the cost is legal fees.
so has somebody looked, or, I mean, are we saving enough money to justify that? Does anybody else have any questions? Hearing none, we'll do a roll call vote. Mr. Terry?
Aye.
Yep.
Aye.
Aye. Approve carryover request per the attached listings.
Mr. Baird, you want to go over that list?
Yeah, I think, there is probably a couple of discussions because of that page of the package. Should be.
Thank you.
Carryover list starts on page 146 of your agenda. These are the requests that the Budget Committee reviewed. Don't know if y'all want to go down through all of them, or if you all have certain questions on any of them, how you would like to address it.
Coming from committee, we don't need a second, so I'll open the floor for any questions or discussion about the list that's been presented. Hearing none,
You do have another memo on your table that
I
we'll go ahead.
$23,000 for a car.
Yes.
What is that?
That is the carryover for the, to update the county administration vehicle and provide the current county administration vehicle for the building inspector who wants to have a SUV for building inspections.
Well, if we don't really put him on, he ain't gonna have any.
Yeah.
Okay.
Duct tape it along, Coy. Any other questions?
There is an addition in your handouts. From Mr. Hankins.
Mr. Hankins, you want to go over this?
Yes, sir. Rural Retreat Rescue Squad has requested that we carry over $32,000 in unspent funds, specifically for payroll support. You don't have a payroll line item for them. The staff recommends that you carry over the $32,000 and not distribute those funds right away until you have the chance to review that request and set policy.
Does that elicit any questions or discussion?
So if we voted to carry it over, but we're not going
Don't authorize,
appropriate.
don't authorize immediate disbursement. Yes, sir.
I've got a couple things, Mr. Chairman, if I may. I'm a huge supporter of sheriff and fire and rescue. But I think there needs to be stipulations that's put in place before they give the money. It would take that before it would get my vote. We have a monthly fire and rescue committee meeting, and unfortunately, unfortunately, I don't ever see Roy Tree at any of our meetings, and I have a problem with that. We're an organization that's in a financial hardship, and they don't show up to communicate with what's going on. So there needs to be much better lines of communication, I think needs to be part of their stipulation, because it's about accountability. If they're running the department and getting the money, and he'll be accountable to us for that, versus us just throwing $32,000 and kind of like Jeff said when he was talking, and hoping it sticks. There's just, I don't feel like in sitting in 2 meetings with him, I don't feel like there's much in the way of accountability because the buck got passed back to the county. I think they have 2 members on their board that was extremely disrespectful, and I have a big problem with that as well. So that's where I'm at.
Mr. Chairman, can I make a statement for the record officer of emergency services?
Come on up, Mr. Hedrick.
Up until this year, the Rotary Officer of Emergency Services has not asked the county for a dime. We are taking steps for accountability. Till COVID hit, we had over $100,000 in the bank. Since then, if we hadn't got money out of our savings, which we had for emergency fund, the town hadn't given us $20,000 and the county gave us $5,000, we would not be able to make the current payroll. I'm not asking for a handout, I'm asking for support for this department, because we will give you documentation on the spending of this $32,000. It'll be strictly used for payroll and operational supplies only. And we'd like to have a new line item created so we can get this money and keep this organization going. I know we've only had 2 meetings. We had one last night. You weren't at that last night, but we had another one last night. Myself and the liaison from the town council are working on these problems, and we're going to do everything we can to solve them. But until we get our calls up and get some revenue coming in, we're going to need some support. And I know it's been given to other rescue squads in the past. Rotary has never asked for a dime. So now we're asking for this carryover to help us operate it until we can get back on our feet. We're going to make some billing changes, and we're going to make some other changes. And due to COVID, we had 69 calls in January. November, we had 0. When you got a payroll of 20,000 plus a month, you don't have any money coming in, you cannot survive.
I think, and Mr. Hankins can correct me if I'm wrong, but I think you had more than 0 calls in the month of November.
According to the sheet that I gave you Monday night, there was 0 on it. We might have had some calls, but they were lift assistance and no pay.
The report from dispatch indicates there were 69 calls for rural retreat in November.
Well,
And we've reviewed the insurance billing statement that you provided. I've got some insight on that. The line item that indicates 0 is an indication that you had 0 calls that were denied by insurance for that month.
Okay. I'll be corrected.
And it also indicates that there were 421 calls that were denied in 2020 that could be rebilled and could be a significant source of income. And we'll be glad to help you work through that.
Okay, and Mr. Duncan has contacted our insurance company. They will be coming to show us what we can do, to show you what the rest of the state's doing on billing, to see if we need to raise our billing rates. We are taking steps to try to get there, but until we get there, we're going to need some help. And that's what I'd like to have a new line item added to our budget with this carryover of $32,000, and we'll submit paperwork to prove what it's being used for.
And I think that, you know, I think that's a big part of it is communication, either with Mr. Hankins or Mr. McKay. And I don't think it's, I understand what you meant, but I don't think it's accurate to say that the county's never gave anything. What you're saying is y'all never, well, but there's money being in the budget every year.
Well,
Yeah, but
several
for
years
payroll,
ago,
yeah.
there was over $40,000 left out of our budget amount that we never used. We've never used our total budget money every year. Am I right there, Mr. Brown?
Yep, that is correct. That year, there was a
So-
lot of carry that you did not use.
So we're trying to hold it lean and mean. So until these things pick up and we can get with the billing company and get straightened out, we're gonna need some help.
Does anybody have any questions for Mr. Hedrick?
Do we need to, I'm sorry, Mr. Chairman, do we need to make a motion to add the line item and the documentation?
Yeah, I would make a motion to approve the carryover request with the addition of the $32,000 if that's what you so deem.
And we'll need a motion in a second since
Yep.
this didn't come out of committee.
So I'll make the motion that we amend and appropriate the $32,000 on the carryover.
Actually, just add 32,000 to the carryover
Okay.
approval.
So I add the 32,000 to the carryover, with a line item, a separate line item for this money, and then documentation for anything it's spent out of.
Have a motion from Mr. Smith. Do I have a second?
I'll second that.
Have a motion and a second from Ms. Lawson. Is there any more questions or discussion?
But we'll get the documentation before we pay it out.
Right.
It'll still be correct me if I'm wrong, it'll still be a reimbursement like everything.
Just like
else.
everything else. Proof of payment out of the payroll account, right?
If that's what the board directs, yes, sir.
Is that,
Is,
go ahead.
is it more of an urgent request? I mean,
We
are there
just want the
employees
line
that are?
item added, so if we need it, right now, we've got enough to make maybe 2 months payroll.
Okay, so they're being paid.
We'll not ask for that
currently.
money unless we absolutely have to have it. I'll
Okay.
guarantee that. Because I'm the chairman of the board. And I'm learning every day.
I'm sure you are. Thank you for all you do.
And
Yeah, Mr. Duncan.
And something we talked about, Mr. is on that operation, we can classify that as operation expenses, but some of the things we're looking at doing, even maybe hiring a different accountant part-time, so between the accountant and additional payroll, that'd be easier for them to pull that money to help pay for an accountant short-term until we get this reporting process on track to help both the rescue squad and the county, and offer them back to being accountable and responsible for what the rescue squad.
Well, it'll be an operations or line item, so whether it's a paramedic or a CPA, it'll be.
It won't be a CPA you can't afford.
Well, yeah.
No.
That was the only thing I could think of off the top of my head. Somebody
Unless-
good with numbers.
Unless Stephen wants to volunteer to come down for a couple days a week and help us out.
You don't want him touching you, no.
Mr. Chairman,
So far.
I would ask for one clarification of what you all said. If we have to provide them some funding at your all's approval for payroll, that will not be reimbursable because they need the money to make payroll.
Right.
So I would request that you, at least, I mean, it's got to be an approved process. They can submit their payroll in, they can submit what they're proposing to pay. And they need additional $5,000 to meet payroll, and it can come out of this amount. But they really can't pay it and then, because they don't have enough money to pay
In
them.
other words, you want the documentation given to you before payroll comes out.
If you need additional funds. And I'll just say you got $25,000 in the bank and your payroll's $30,000.
We asked for $5,000.
You asked for $5,000.
But right now, according to our finances last night, we're good for maybe 2 months.
Okay.
If nothing else comes in. After that, we're broke again. And for y'all's information, I think I told you, we pulled $25,000 out of the emergency fund we had. The town of Roy Creek gave us $20,000, the county gave us $5,000. That was 45, 50,000. We're down to 40 now. We have had some money come in. But we are taking steps. We've changed a few things to make this operation a little bit more profitable than it has been. Like I said, at the end of the year, 2020, we had over $100,000 in the bank. And what, 2 months ago, it was down to less than 20,000. And that's because of reduced costs and payment. Anybody have any other questions for me?
No, sir.
Does that elicit Any more questions or discussion from the board? Hearing none, we'll do a roll call vote. Mr. Terry? Aye.
Aye.
So approved. Anything else from Budget Committee? I lost my place.
Yes, sir. Approved payment of $1,000 out of the general fund for the water connection fee for Lead Mines Rescue's Jackson facility.
Mr. Barrett, you want to explain that?
Yeah, basically, the Jackson Rescue Squad used to get their water from a water line from the Jackson Memorial Elementary School. Used to be on a well for years, then it switched over to county water when we put water in that area. There was a substantial leak between the school building and this building under the parking lot area. When the water line was put in there, a place for a meter was established along Route 52 to serve the Jackson School. The Lead Mines Rescue Squad is using that building for some of their water projects and things. They want to get water service back at that building. The Water Department is an enterprise fund. It requires payment of the connection fee. So just request that the Board of Supervisors are paying the connection fee. So Lead Mines Rescue Squad is not paying the connection fee for that building.
Does anybody have any questions on that? Hearing none, we'll do a roll call vote. Mr. Terry?
Aye.
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 That's it from the Budget Committee,
That's
correct?
all, Mr. Chairman, correct.
Moving on to the agenda, next item is new business. We have the consent calendar that's been presented. Make a motion to approve it. Have a motion by Mr. Horny. Do I have a second?
Second.
Have a second by Mr. Smith. Is there any questions or discussion? Hearing none, we'll do a roll call vote. Mr. Smith?
Aye.
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 So approved. Next item is the Lead Mines Rescue Squad building bids. Mr. Barrett.
Yes, Mr. Chairman. Last Friday, Mr. Hankins opened up the bids for the Lead Mines Rescue Squad expansion. You have a memorandum from him in front of you. I shared information with you all Friday, I believe, that the bids had come in on that. Mr. Hankins, I'll let you go over your memo with them and recommendation. You all just approved the $44,800 in carryover, so we have the $294,800 requested or needed for this project.
The bids came in under budget. The contractor has worked in the county before. The engineers reviewed the bid submission, didn't find anything out of line. So staff recommends that you authorize the county administrator to enter into the construction contract to require a construction bond and to give notice to proceed for construction.
And I apologize, Mr. Hankins. I didn't realize your name was on that memo. I got excited because it was under bid.
You'll note I did put turnkey in the memo 3 times.
Well, and I was getting ready to say I'm going to steal Mr. Smith's question, but I seen it in there. This is turnkey, ready to go.
We had two bid additives. One was for the concrete area in front, and the second one was finishing out the area. Our staff could do it, but with the bid prices they've got in there, it's comparable, and our staff has enough other projects that they're working on, as you all are aware. So, as you all are aware, I was out of the office Friday, so I appreciate Mr. Hankins been around here to open up the bids and go through this.
Well, if they're going to be under, budget, how about letting Matt open all of them up? And what's the time frame? Because I know Corey's going to ask us, so I'll go ahead and do that for him.
A lot of it depends on the delivery of the metal building, so I can't give you a good time frame on it yet. Once we have notice to proceed, we'll get with the contractor and see how much time they expect, and we can report back to you.
Entertain a motion to authorize the county administrative and staff to enter into a construction contract with the low bidder.
So I make
Have a motion by Mr. Terry, and was that a second, Mr. McRoberts? Any questions or discussion? Hearing none, we'll do a roll call vote. Mr. Terry?
Aye.
Yep.
Aye.
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 So approved.
About time.
47 years. Oh, yeah.
He won't be able to.
He's had a bottle of champagne over here.
We're still looking for some
4 years.
land burns, Frank.
All right, next item is fiscal year 22 first quarter appropriations.
Mr. Chairman, what you have in front of you there is first quarter appropriations. I will note that you have a handout in front of you. The only difference in that handout is about the 5th item down. The carryover that you all just approved was for the Commissioner of Revenue for $29,987. In your board package, it shows up on the public information line. Just a typographical error, so the total value amount has not changed there. What you've got shown there is the approved budget, the carryover amounts that you all just approved, except it does not include Rural Retreat Rescue Squad, and I'll come right back to that. And then the first quarter appropriation. So the first quarter appropriation is basically 1/4 of the approved budget and all of the carryover budget. If you all want to amend, or if you want to appropriate the $32,000 for Rural Retreat Rescue Squad at this time, we need to add that $32,000 to the Rural Retreat Rescue Squad. If you want to hold it and not appropriate it at this time, we can come back and appropriate those funds at another meeting.
I have a question.
Yes, sir.
Is the part-time help for Max Miller's fire department in there?
It's already in the approved budget.
Well, I'd like to say one thing. I'm not for that. I think it will open up a can of worms there. It's going to cost tax money. And I got 2 fire departments in my district. And I sure don't want 100 boys mad at me over it. So that's just how I feel.
So what's staff recommendation as far as
The recommendation is for you all to approve the 2022 first quarter appropriation as presented, which is a total of the $28,960,498. The only question would be is if you all just said you want to carry that money over, but you weren't certain you wanted to appropriate it yet at this time. But you've also said you want them to provide the documentation. So appropriating it just puts it out there. If they need the money, then it comes to you all for approval at a board meeting to approve payment.
and that'll, I mean, I guess I'd rather go ahead and stick it in there for the appropriation and not have a situation like we had a couple of years ago where we had to meet on a Wednesday night.
To do it.
so
I
they could
agree.
make-
I would
Yeah.
prefer to see you go ahead and appropriate and put it in there if that's all right with you all. So recommendation from staff would be to approve the first quarter appropriation with the addition of $32,000 for the Rural Retreat Rescue Squad.
So moved.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Is there any questions or discussion? Here now, we'll do a roll call vote. Mr. Smith?
Aye.
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 So approved. And Ms. Gwen walked in. Let us knock this out and we'll get you up here. Abstract of votes by Mr. Counts. Is there anything you want to add?
Come up, I'll talk to y'all a little bit about June primary. And I'll first start off thanking you all for our request that we made for this upcoming budget year. It'll definitely go a long way for our office on the registrar's end, making my assistant a full-time position, and along on the electoral board side with, we had several, I would call, mission-critical items that the state's changed on us that we need to get, that we have to update. So, for the June primary, it was a slow election. It was the slowest one I've had thus far, with a turnout of 422 around the entire county. We still utilized all 11 of our precincts. I wanted to note, just for y'all to know though, out of those 422 votes, still the largest precinct to vote for this election was the absentee precinct. So 24% of that was still they either came into the office and voted, or they voted absentee by mail, which is kind of what I've talked about before, indicating, that I don't really think it's going anywhere, and that folks will continue using it. We had 34 officers of elections that we used around the county that day. Ben, who works for Mr. Bowers, he assisted us on the takeout on the Monday before, and then on the pickup on the Wednesday after. So we're always appreciative to have their help as well to go out. I wanted to bring up 2 items though to you all, kind of moving towards November. One, I would still hope to be able to use the old courthouse building for our early voting for this election. As I said, I still anticipate having a pretty large early voting turnout, and I'm not sure if the capacity of our office would be able to handle having that volume towards the end, especially towards the end, getting closer to November. So wanted to bring that up. The second item I wanted to bring up, and I've brought up to Mr. Vaught and Mr. Bear, we have, looking at other counties during their early voting period for last November when they had local candidates and these couple primaries, I wanted to bring up about campaign signs. Under the law right now, the early voting location is considered a polling place, so there's nothing stopping a candidate or political party from putting campaign signs up around the courthouse. I don't know if y'all want Mr. Vaught to have his 4x8 campaign sign up there or not.
A banner for
Yeah.
the second story. It's already on order.
Yeah,
Man.
so, like I said, there's basically 2 options. The Board of Supervisors can pass an ordinance not allowing campaign signs on the courthouse property. I've also spoken with Judge Showalter, and he's fine with entering an order to keep us from having to go through doing an ordinance. He's fine with doing an order, not allowing campaign signs. Whichever one, like I said, I just wanted to mention it to you all tonight and let you know whichever route you wanted to take. So I just know if we have 45 days of campaign signs blowing around out there somewhere, it may be a fun job for me out there. So to see those, because I'm sure somebody will be calling me expecting me to come pick them up. Maybe, I don't know. So.
What early voting opens when?
It will be set. Let's see. I would say.
Is it 45 days before the election?
Yeah, it's either going to be Friday, September 10th or September 17th. So,
Are the reassessors going to be done with that room?
We are going to have to discuss relocating them either upstairs in the courthouse or downstairs in the courthouse. That to me is the best place we have to do it, absentee voting or early voting.
I mean, it from what I seen last year, it worked out really well, especially during tax season. People were.
Yeah. Well, and 2, and if you do it one location, one election, and then change it to another location, another, we start getting people wandering around that are angry that they went to this building. And to the parking, I kind of think the parking on the side where our office is currently located can get tough if court's going on, and for folks to get in and out right there, so off the street. But.
On the campaign signs, if you all are so inclined to agree with Lennon's recommendation of not having campaign signs out there, we can do an ordinance, but that requires public hearing and drafting the ordinance and everything else. I would request that the board make a motion to authorize the chairman to sign a letter to Judge Showalter asking him if he would enter an order to ban campaign signs, or since he's in up for election, ask the county administrator to sign a letter to not have campaign signs.
I'll sign it November 3rd.
It's election year.
And been
Sign
all,
that order that we just can't put signs up at all in the
I take that.
and, you know, in all seriousness, they've done a really good job, especially in the past couple of weeks, cleaning that area up and making, you know, we got a mowing crew and they do a good job. And I don't like mowing around my own side. It's got my name on it.
So you just need a motion to authorize Mr.
Motion
Bear
letter,
to-
to send a letter to Judge Showalter asking he would enter an order banning campaign signs.
I'll make that motion.
Have a motion, have a second.
A second.
Have a motion, and a second. Is there any questions or discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, same sign. Back wall Shules just got really expensive.
Yeah, that's prime real estate now. So, any other questions for me or anything else?
Then we'll go back to the abstract of votes.
Oh, yeah.
We need to approve those.
Yeah, accept those.
Entertain a motion to accept the abstract of votes from the June 8th, 2021 primary.
So moved.
Have a motion, do I have a second?
Second.
Is there any questions or discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Thank you,
All
sir.
right, thank y'all. Have a good evening.
Thanks, Lennon.
Now we'll backtrack, because I know she's got a New Year's Eve party to go to. Miss Gwen?
I was gonna say Happy New Year's Eve to you all, but Mr. Vaught kind of beat me to it, so. I don't know, I think this is, more of a New Year's Eve to celebrate than the actual December 31st New Year's Eve is, but I know Ms. Williams is gonna be glad to celebrate New Year's in the next couple of days, so she's gonna get a double dose this weekend. Okay, let me get myself together. It's good to be here, good to see everybody. Have all kinds of things for you tonight. I will start, as usual, with the financial report. The one you had that was in your board packet is for the month of May. And as noted on the report, the consolidated account balance was $69,149,206, and the general fund balance was $46,643,027. Of course, June, you'll see that one change a lot because we all start spending quite a bit of money in the month of June. So, does anyone have any questions on the May report that hopefully I can answer, because I literally just printed this off because it's been wild. No questions? Okay. Well, I'll go on to maybe bigger and better things that excite me a lot as far as things going on in our office. I try to keep you all updated so you know what we're up to, and that way my department can ensure that you all, among many others, can get a paycheck from month to month, or at least twice a month. This evening we closed out the month of June in order for the finance department to begin their work to close out the month, close out the fiscal year, open the new fiscal year, and things like that. So I'll address more of that here in just a little bit. So since we were able to close out today, I'm going to give you a June 30th collection report. As of this evening, which is all collections through 5 o'clock today, we have a collection rate compared to what we billed of 97%. And for taxes last year, in tax only, this does not include the license fees. In tax only, we have billed out $22,841,411. So collecting 97% of that as of today, as I always say, I'm very proud of, but I'm very proud of, my staff. They put a lot of time and effort in to collect as much as they can. License fees collections aren't quite as high. We're only at about 90% collection on that. So overall, it puts us at about a 93% collection rate of what we've billed out between the tax and the license fees. But we've had a very good collection year, considering that pretty much this whole collection year has been in the pandemic. We only had the few months that affected us last year for the last fiscal year, but I think I think our collection numbers look really well for this year. And with that, you've heard me talk about the DMV stops, so I looked real quickly before I left the office earlier. In relation to us placing the stops for this fiscal year that we're wrapping up, we've collected over $500,000 just in tax only, in relation to placing the DMV stops. Now, some of those folks, granted, they do voluntarily, for the most part, come in to pay. Others, they don't until they have that stop. But just to kind of give you an idea of how effective that collection tool actually is for us in placing those. And that total does not include the amount that we pay to DMV for their fee. That's tax, penalty, interest only, and what we collect off of those. Dog tags, as you know, I stirred the kennels up back in the fall and sent everybody letters on dog tags, or that they needed to purchase dog tags. I'm actually looking at probably doing another mass mailing again this summer on that. But for this fiscal year, we only budget $5,000 normally. We never break the $5,000. We've collected over $18,000 in dog tags for this past fiscal year. Some have been okay with it. Others have told us they didn't like it, but we'll see how it continues to go. I think we increased the business for a lot of our area vets. So they're now making sure that they're referring people to our office to purchase a dog tag. And a lot of folks are coming immediately when they leave the vet's office. So that was kind of another thing in me stirring that up. As you know, we had a tax sale yesterday. Mr. McRoberts come. I tried to bid him in on every parcel, but he just would not cooperate. I don't think he ended up buying anything, but I think he got a good show of what was going on. We sold 8 parcels. We originally had 12 on our list. 2 were redeemed, which meant the property owners came in and paid the tax, cost, fees, everything in full prior to sale. We had 2 that were removed from the list. One, I've worked with Ms. Vaught on and with the property owners, and we've all agreed that the gentleman needs to have a survey completed. There's some mapping issues, so we just need to kind of get some things worked out on his. The other one, the heirs feel there's a discrepancy in the acreage, so that one was removed as well because both of those parties have sought legal counsel, and so we've removed those from the list. But we sold 8 properties. The 8 parcels brought a total of $118,700, and we will receive about $38,000 of that for the tax, penalty, and interest that's owed to us. That does not include any of our recovered costs, which are the fees that we've had to pay out for various things related to the sale that we will recoup on that. So I'm only giving you the amount that we'll receive in tax. So I felt like it was a good sale. It was a productive day. I'm currently working toward having sales. My goal is for April and August of next year, so I hope to have 2 next year because we have a lot of parcels that we need to have something happening with. Yes, sir.
When you sell a piece of property, say they owe $5,000 in back taxes and it sells for $100,000, what happens with the money?
Okay, so
I don't think a lot of people realize
understand what happened. Okay, we'll say the $5,000 includes tax and the attorney's fees and any other costs. So we'll say that's everything together to pay off the property. If in your scenario, if there's $5,000 due and the property brings $100,000, the owner or heirs of the property, whichever applies, they have the opportunity to claim that money, which is what we call excess proceeds. So what happens when, well, let's back up a little bit. So with this sale, we'll have the crew confirmation of the sale will be filed August 3rd with Circuit Court. So once Judge Showalter approves those sales, then, and all money's collected, collection agency deposits any excess proceeds with Circuit Court. So the clerk of Circuit Court has to hold those funds for 2 years. So the owner of the property or the heirs of the property, if they're an heir, they have to prove they are in fact an heir. So then it's determined of what percentage they would receive in your scenario of that 95,000 that was over-collected, so to speak. They would get a percentage of that, but they have to claim that within 2 years. At the end of that 2 years, any money that is not claimed gets returned back to Wythe County. We put it into the general fund, and it comes into our coffers for our operations.
And I think there was some misconception out there that the county got to keep all of it, but if there's actually somebody that is
No.
alive, they get.
Well, one parcel, for example, the collection attorneys identified 198 heirs. That doesn't count the ones that they missed. Sometimes, and not saying that any amount is not worth it, but sometimes for the heirs, by the time they petition circuit court, and any costs that might be related to that, because sometimes folks will choose to seek legal counsel for that instead of petitioning on their own. You take 198 heirs, you may not get very much depending on what the difference is and what was collected. Some will see that it's worthwhile to pursue that, and others choose to not. There's the misconception sometimes of it's easy money, that I will say, you know, I'm John Smith, and I you know, I'm part owner in this Smith property that's sold, or I'm an heir. They have to prove they are an heir. They can't just come in and say, I'm related and I get part of that money. So there is a process with that. But no, Wythe County does not get all of that money. We only get the tax, penalty, interest, and the fees that we've already fronted for that. There is the possibility that 2 years later we can get that money, but it depends on if anybody's petitioned the court to receive their portion of those excess proceeds. So.
Does anybody have any questions for Ms. Gwen?
So Wythe County has a total of 72 million. How much is that?
I assume you're looking at the financial report? You asked about 72
How much
million.
total amount of money is Wythe County got in the bank?
In the bank? When I looked earlier, we had a little over 69 million as of this afternoon.
Okay.
So,
No, you can't get a loan.
actually, our balance was about the same as what it's shown right here at May month end of the 69,149,206. We were about in that range. We had a lot of checks to clear today.
That's enough.
And Stephen's got $3.
Yeah, June is always a very heavy, school board expenditure, because you've got 3 payrolls they end up running and processing in June, all their year-end expenditures, so, you will see quite a few expenditures next month.
Well, what's total general fund?
I don't have June general fund, but for May, because I didn't look to see on June. For May, we're at 46,643,000.
Okay.
That should build a community center in Barron Springs, right?
Better than nothing, ain't it?
Don't encourage him, please.
I just felt like that's where it might be heading.
Does anybody else have any questions for Ms. Gwen?
I have one other thing that I will add. We will be on limited operations in the treasurer's office the next 2 days to allow the finance department to close out the month of June and the fiscal year. For them to do that, it does require for no one to be logged into the system and no transactions happening in the system. So we will still be open. We'll still be answering the phone and sadly telling folks we can't take their payment. They'll have to call us back hopefully on Tuesday. Like I said, we will be there, but not taking real estate personal property tax payments or releasing DMV stops because we can't process those collections. So just in case you get a phone call because we wouldn't take their money, you'll know why.
Coy will take it.
Okay, thank you for your time
Thank
this
you,
evening.
ma'am.
Sorry I was late, but we were trying to get wrapped up and had a few hiccups, but thank you very much.
Thank you, Lori.
Thank you, Lauren.
All right, going back on the agenda, we're down to staff reports. First up is Assistant County Administrator, Mr. Hankins.
Give you all a written report. I'll hit the highlights. We've talked about the capital improvement plan. We're still working on that. We've got to include, for the first time, the revenue sharing roads on that plan, so that's caused a couple of hiccups, so we're trying to work through that. You should still see that for approval in July. Still working with the preferred provider on contract language for the broadband partnership. We'll work out the principles and then get it to the attorneys for final review before you see it, but you should also see that in July, although it may be at your second meeting. We'll certainly try our best to expedite that. And then the comprehensive plan that you've funded and is also partially grant funded, that is still working and in process. We're still collecting survey responses, so if you can share on your social media outlets, we're doing it on ours. Just let folks know they need to participate in the survey. We've got over 400 responses for that survey. It'd be nice if we landed around 700 or better so that we can get the best data possible to work with. On our departments, you've seen the reorganization or the new org chart, so you know where we're at with that. I'm going through and meeting individually with the employees that are now going to report through me. There are some changes coming up tomorrow in the Freedom of Information Act. We've got some changes administratively that we have to make, and we have to post a policy on the website that details what our policy is. We'll post one that conforms to state code, but basically now when folks submit Freedom of Information Act requests, there are limitations on when we can charge and when we can't. There are some changes procedurally that we have to follow, so that's going to change how we operate, but Ms. Sweeney is designated as our FOIA officer, so she's fielding a lot of those requests now. We did have one board request I wanted to touch on. Worked with the commissioner on this one as well. The town of Wythe's mayor puts out a newsletter on a regular basis, and in the June newsletter there was a highlight about the elderly and handicapped tax exemption program. Well, the deadline for that is May 1st, I believe, and so folks called the commissioner's office upset about missing out on the opportunity and asking why they didn't get a reminder earlier. Kathy has done a very good job of getting the word out on that. It did receive publicity. Word got out, but unfortunately not everybody was covered. But we'll work with the commissioner's office to make sure that we do what we can to help spreading that word next year so that fewer folks feel like they were left out of that program. We have submitted some grants. The Trails brochure, you all have probably seen that and remember that. It was a fairly popular brochure. The town of Wythe tourism office helped develop that. Elizabeth has put in a grant for renewing that brochure, and we should hear in July whether or not we get those funds. We have been approved for the school resource officer continuation grants for both George Wythe and Fort Chiswell. That was an aggravation. We spent a lot of time working on that, going back and forth with the state, but they have finally approved it, and that's pending the receipt of the award package from them. And then I might have mentioned before, we have been notified how much we're going to be eligible for on the Four for Life funding for the rescue squads for next year, and we're waiting on approval to be able to apply and bring those funds in. You all know that I stopped the COVID-19 reports on June 4th. That's because the state stopped sending the data to us. They felt like that was no longer effective, so that's why the reports ended. And then one of the things that we've had upcoming, we've had conversations with the health department that they've suggested an ordinance similar to one that Grayson County has adopted that makes it easier for your charitable nonprofit events like the Lord's Acre Sale, some of your school athletic boosters who do concessions, make it easier for those folks to be able to sell from a food inspection standpoint. So we're looking at that language. I'll get it to Scott for his review, and we'll get that to you sometime in July. Be glad to answer any questions.
Does anybody have any questions for Mr. Hankins? Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
County Administrator, Mr. Bear.
First thing is, VDOT Economic Development Access Grant. What you have is a letter there where the legislature this year extended our timeframe for getting a qualifying business on Lot 24. So we need to, which is a good thing, we need to extend our CD out through June 2025 to meet their requirements. And I would just request permission from the board for county administrator and treasurer to establish change the terms of the CD that it does not expire prior to July 1st, 2020. This is the access road from Gator Lane to Lot 24. It was built with Development Access Funds. She has a CD in the bank. I think it's around $425,000 that we have to hold for VDOT. If we do not have a qualifying business located there by July 1st, 2025, they will come and take that $425,000, whatever.
So what action did you?
Just a request to extend the terms of that CD through July 1st, 2025.
So moved.
Have a motion by Mr. Cook, have a second by Mr. Terry.
Yes, sir.
Any questions or discussion? Hearing none, we'll do a roll call vote. Mr. Smith?
Aye.
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 So approved.
Next item on the agenda is your year-end report for the FY21. Based on what you'll see there, you've got the departments, you have the budget, you have their actual expenditures. The next column is required appropriations. The next column is the total unspent for the year. The balance is the next line is the F121 carryovers that you all have just approved. And then the total unspent budget is what's on the right. You'll notice the total unspent budget for the county operations this year is $2.2 million. This does not include the school and DSS. They are still receiving revenues as of today, probably through Ms. Gwen, and we will have their final numbers. But it prior to the carryover was up close to 1.4, 1.5 million for the schools, less than 220-something thousand carryover that y'all approved. They will be returning somewhere between 1.2 and 1.3 million to our general funds. They will not be using. From a county's perspective, if you combine all of the sheriff's offices together, it's a total of about 400,000 unspent there. The second largest savings is in the county office building, and that's from our debt restructuring this year. The third largest savings is in the regional tourism of 134,000, and that's from debt restructuring. And then the fourth largest savings this year is the water department, $115,000 under budget in their operations this year. So the only action needed from the board is the fourth column over the FY21 appropriations required. I would request that the board approve the $3,159 as shown to amend and appropriate to those respective budgets.
Entertain a motion to, I'm sorry, what did you say?
To amend and appropriate.
Amend and appropriate, I was reading something.
I'll make that motion.
Have a motion by Ms. Lawson, do I have a second?
Second.
Have a second by Mr. Smith. Any questions or discussion? Mr. Baird, on page 247, and I believe in giving credit where credit's due, under 8112, Apex payroll, there was $116,250 unspent.
That is a pass-through for their entire count, but yes, of what they had budgeted for payroll last year, they only spent $87,000 and had $160,000 unspent. That's correct.
But ultimately, that was out of their operating budget that we budgeted. So that's county funds. Like I said, give credit where credit's due. Any other questions or discussion? Here now, we'll do a roll call vote. Mr. Terry?
Aye.
Yep.
Aye.
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 So approved.
The next item I handed out to you all is just a memorandum for year adjustment. And I'll use this report right here that we're just looking at as an example. And I'll pick on the treasurer because she's the first one that's out there. But basically, you'll see her unspent funds at the end of the year is $584 unspent. If she got a paper order this week for that's $1,000, but we did not get paid this week, our auditors will come back when they start doing the adjusted entries and the pre-audit, and they will charge that back to FY20. But at that point in time, Ms. Wynn's budget is going to be $400 in the negative because she is over her budget for the year. The auditor had the comment in the January 12th presentation that they made to us, and I highlighted that with you. That says, during our review of appropriation expenditures, we noted that a few departments exceeded their appropriations for the year, and we recommend that the board authorize the county administrator to transfer the appropriations between departments to cover any over expenditure caused by the posted year-end payment. I originally argued with him because what you all just did gets all the departments that had an overage to zero, and I couldn't figure out why we were over. But after discussion with him, it came from what's called period 13 of transferring those expenditures back. So should Ms. Wynn be over by $600, this would authorize the county administrator to move $400 from any of these remaining $2.2 million that's left unspent to cover those expenses. Does that make sense?
To the auditors, it does.
That would just request authorization to transfer between departments for FY21 expenditures.
Entertain a motion to authorize Mr. Barrett to transfer appropriations between departments to cover any over expenditure.
So moved.
Have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Have a motion, a second. Is there any questions or discussion? Hearing none, we'll do a roll call vote with Mr. Smith.
Aye.
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 Yeah.
So approved.
And just for informational purposes, our first round of ARPA funds have been received. We will be talking about that in our July meeting. We'll begin talking about our priorities for those funds. 2.6 million roughly was the number that has come in, and you will see it on your next financial report.
So have we decided that's what we're gonna call it, ARPA?
American Rescue Plan Act funds. Yes, ARPA.
I like COVID money.
And that's all I have, Mr. Chairman, unless anyone has any questions.
Does anybody have anything for Mr. Barrett? All right, next is County Attorney, Mr. Farthing.
Mr. Chairman, I just have one thing to present to the board. I got an email today from our law firm representing us in the opioid litigation, and it concerned the Purdue Pharma bankruptcy. So in these complex bankruptcy cases, the debtors present a bankruptcy plan to propose payments, and we have to vote on that. So the Wagstaff firm just recommended that we vote yes on the plan proposed, and I think you ought to follow their recommendation. They're following that bankruptcy and how that's going to affect us on the opioid litigation.
How much money?
I don't have an amount yet. It's
Only a lawyer would suggest that you vote yes without an amount.
It's something, right? It's a reorganization bankruptcy plan, so you don't know until, you know. The other problem we have in that litigation that I haven't heard an answer to yet is how much money do we get, right? Like, how do we determine how we've been affected by the opioid problem, and how many dollars per person of population or however they're going to do it. The hope is it's sort of some kind of grand settlement like that, so many dollars per population or percentage of the settlement, and they write us a check and we don't have to go try to prove.
To dig all that
To
up.
dig all that money.
What they
all that
sent
stuff.
out in the original
Correct,
thing.
right.
Yeah, because that was,
There's been at least 2 bankruptcies, maybe 3 of these drug companies that have essentially stalled everything, so.
so you need us to take action to authorize you to.
To authorize us to tell WAG staff we can follow their recommendation. Yes.
I'll make that motion.
Have a motion, do I have a second?
Second.
Have a second for Mr. Smith. Is there any questions or discussion? Hearing none, we'll do a roll call vote. Mr. Terry?
Yep.
Aye.
Aye.
So approved. Anything else, Mr. Farthing?
Mr. Chairman, I do not have anything else. Thank you.
And I assume we all received your email this afternoon. Thank you for.
I only sent that to you, Mr. Bear. So there was a complaint made by Department of Social Services person, and I had sent a response. It was actually sent to Mr. Bear trying to do a grievance, and the grievance only applies to their employees.
I shared the problem.
Oh, you shared the
Yes.
problem.
Okay.
I haven't
Okay.
shared your letter, but I shared the information with all of them.
Yeah, so Stephen shared information. I sent a letter today to the person making the complaint, trying to use the county grievance procedure, and just said, we don't govern the Department of Social Services. You know, you got to talk to them about that. But I can forward it to everybody this evening. I was sending it to the lady and copied Stephen and Brian on it.
Thank you, sir. Anybody have anything for Mr. Farthing? All right, we'll move on to Board of Supervisors time. Mr. Smith?
I got a couple things, Mr. Chairman. Some of the Ivanhoe Fire Department had reached out to me. Their brush truck, the pump has seized up on that truck. And we need to see about getting it taken care of. I don't know if they'd talked to you or not, Corey. They did reach out. We might want to check with Jimmy and see what he knows about that.
He's been working on that. At this point, the pump is worth more than the truck if you replace it, and replacement is the only option. So it's a question of, you know, how much do we want to continue to invest in the truck?
So with that being said, they did ask about where we stood on their brush truck as well, replacing it.
On their brush truck or their?
Yeah, they had requested a new truck, and they wanted it to be their, I think it was a brush truck.
No, it was a pumper.
Was it? Okay.
Or no? Yeah, it was a pumper.
Theirs was a pumper, Speedwell's was a tanker.
Okay,
All right, so,
thank you.
so strike that then. And then the last thing that I have, Mr. Chairman, I know we had worked with the Department of Game and Inland Fisheries about opening hunting up in the Progress Park. I don't want to lose sight of that because tomorrow's July the 1st and October will be here before you know it.
Mr. Williams and Mr. Hankins and I recently discussed that. I don't know if he's got any more feedback from the parking was the main thing. We identified a few parking locations that we could use to feed back to DGIF, and I don't know if we've heard anything back or if that's gone to them.
I haven't checked with Kevin in the last couple of days, but we hadn't heard as of late last week. So.
And I talked to Mr. Bassinger, and he's recommending just running it for bow season only, because if we run it for the entire season, we'd probably wipe out more than what we need as far as the deer population out there. But I do like the recommendation that they had on the buddy system. So if Mr. Byer, if you get picked, Mr. Terry can go with you as your buddy if you choose. So I do like that recommendation because the zones are big enough that they've got set up.
It's good safety practice.
That's all I have, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Mr. Cook? No, you done had your time. Okay. Ms. Lawson?
I have nothing at this time.
Mr. McRoberts?
The only thing I have is Route 69 in Gordon.
Yes. It's probably best for us to meet Andy down there. He described what they're going to do, but he said he could probably describe it better in person. But they are going to do some work there to sort of build up the side of the road that you're talking about.
Yeah.
to be able to put the guardrail in. And if
That's what we have to do.
that, I think that makes general sense, but if we need to look at it down there, but that's what they're planning to do. He agreed with you, it does need work, but it's a difficult place to work in, and it's gonna take building up to get it to that.
Okay, thank you. That's all I have.
Mr. Horny,
I don't have anything at this time.
Mr. Terry,
Nothing at this time, sir.
man, y'all putting it all on me. Got a couple of things. The first thing, and y'all know I've been a stickler for this since I've been on the board. Mr. Chris stopped me this morning and wanted to thank all of us, not only for what we done this year, but in the past 4 years, and I know that doesn't include all of you, but you know, we talked about how he used to be hemorrhaging employees. He would get a good employee, get them trained, they'd get certified, and they would go to, you know, the town of Wythe or some other town. And, you know, he just wanted to say thank you for the pay raises and the salary scale adjustments. And it's not just his department. I know we've done it, you know, for different departments. And so that was nice to hear. Second thing, and I won't include Mr. Bowers in this because he was on vacation last week, but his crew really, I mean, those guys were everywhere in Wythe County last week, and they, you know, we took the mowing off of them, took some other stuff. If you've not been around this complex on this hill, some of the stuff they've done, it's the best it's looked since, you know, probably the past 20 years. We did get the cannon back. I think that was in the paper. I jokingly told Mr. Bowers that the gentleman that refurbished it apparently had never done any government work because it was entirely too quick. I mean, it seemed like it wasn't going anytime, but he done a great job, and we should be very appreciative. If you could send him a thank you letter, either you sign it or we'll all sign it, because I mean, it really is. I was hoping it'd fall off the truck because I didn't think it would ever look that good. So, and then my one negative, Mr. Bear, is I was a big proponent of getting a new phone system. In hindsight, I should have kept my mouth shut. I'm so sick of getting complaints about this new phone system. Will you get with Todd and have him go to each department and fix this phone system? You know, it used to be one department didn't like this. Well, now it's constant. And, you know, if we got burn on the system, we need to know. If it's something, you know, have him dedicate him and his staff to fix this problem.
I will do so, and I'll give you some information. That's part of his reason for requesting the carryover funds with that. The phone system itself, he feels is adequate. The company that we bought it from, the setup was not adequate. He is working directly with the phone company itself to get assistance to address these problems. But I will certainly, we literally were talking about it this morning when I was talking to him about some other issues. But I will make sure he's going through all the departments. But he will agree with you. The setup is not where it needs to be on these phone systems.
We'll have him tell the phone company that in 4 years, I feel like I have mellowed out greatly. But they can go on YouTube and watch meetings from 4 years ago, and if I keep getting complaints, that's how I'm going to be.
I'll put a big star.
You know, I was just
Understood.
And I'm not saying it's Todd's fault. It's, you know, but it is just, it runs the
Staff
gamut.
is not satisfied with it, that's using it, and Mr. Catron is not satisfied with it either.
But it did come in under budget.
Yeah.
That's all I have. Next item on the agenda is closed session. I'll entertain a motion to go into closed session under Code of Virginia 2.2-3711A5, discussion of prospective industry project gloves.
So moved.
Have a motion, have a second.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Any questions or discussion? Hearing none, we'll do a roll call vote. Mr. Terry?
Aye.
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 We are now in closed session. Motion to come out of closed session. Have a motion to have a second. Have a motion and a second. Do a roll call vote. Mr. Smith? Aye.
Aye.
Now in open session, Mr. McRoberts, if you'll read the certification.
Resolution, certification of closed meeting. Whereas the Wythe County Board of Supervisors has convened a closed meeting on this date pursuant to an affirmative recorded vote and in accordance with the provisions of Virginia Freedom of Information Act, and whereas Section 2.2, 3712 of the Code of Virginia requires certification by the Wythe County Board of Supervisors that such a meeting was conducted in conformity with Virginia law. Now therefore, be it resolved that the Wythe County Board of Supervisors hereby certifies that to the best of each member's knowledge, 1, only public business matters lawfully exempted from open meeting requirements by Virginia law were discussed in the closed meeting to which this certification resolution applies, and 2, only such public business matters as were identified in the motion convening the closed meeting were heard, discussed, or considered by the Wythe County Board of Supervisors. I make a motion we accept that.
Have a motion to ratify the certification. To have a second. Second. Have a motion and a second. Any questions or discussion? Hearing none, we'll do a roll call vote. Mr. Terry?
Aye.
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 Aye. So approved. Anything else, Mr. Barrett?
No, sir, Mr. Chairman, thank you for the year end.
Mr. McRoberts?
Do we have a meeting next Tuesday of any kind?
No.
Okay.
We're back on regular schedule, correct?
Back on regular schedule and committee meetings based on input from everybody. We will not have committee meetings next week either. So,
Okay.
I do not know of any meetings that we have next week.
And did you get the email about the regional jail meeting been moved?
It did move.
16th. So.
So we don't have planning commission Monday?
Yeah, planning commission Tuesday.
I'll be out of town, but I'll let Michelle know.
There's no board meetings, no board committee meetings.
Mr. Hankins, you have anything else? And I didn't say it earlier, but thank you for your work and Jimmy too on the rescue squad deal. Miss Collins, you have anything? Anybody else have anything? Hearing none, we'll, what?
There's just one quick thing, and you may have sent it out as well. County picnic, everyone should be getting an email on that if you haven't already. June, July 30th, at Foster's Hall. I have not sent it to the board other than I'll get it out to you tomorrow.
Anybody else have anything? All right, we'll be adjourned.